am the Swarm. Vengeance shall be mine.
Ladies and gents, welcome back to AusGamers. You're here once again with Stephen Farrelly, and I am here once again out at BlizzCon. I'm here with KO, who works on Starcraft 2, a game I know you're all very interested in. We're going to talk about the new units that have been divulged here at BlizzCon, and a little bit about the single-player story, which is what I'd like to know a little bit more about. I guess one of the big questions that I actually wanted to have is, we had a small interview with one of the Aussie pro gamers last night, and we kind of talked to him about whether they feel that some of the stuff that they come across when they're playing the game is stuff that they'd like to directly talk to Blizzard about. And I'm sort of curious to know how you guys internally sort of look at how they're playing the game and like basically how those two things kind of cohesively come together and shape what ends up coming out.
Sure. Well, we are looking at balancing the game across all levels of play. We're definitely paying attention to the pro scene and all the tournaments. We had a multiplayer panel today where our balance team, including David Kim, was talking kind of about how things are doing, like the health of the game across those areas. As far as pro players, we not only like David has some direct communication with some pro players. I'm not sure the specifics on which ones, but they participate in our public test rounds when we do patches for StarCraft 2 Wings of Liberty. I think we have open communications with many pro players between our community team and our balance team, and so we're looking for their feedback. They give us their feedback. Sometimes we're asking for their feedback. So there's definitely a back and forth there where we're trying to like react to and adjust to the requests that they have as far as the issues that they're finding in the game while they're playing it.
How much hands-on do you have with the decisions that go into balance and like bringing in new units and stuff like that?
So my role is mainly overseeing content creation for the game. So a lot of times we have design teams, whether it's in the campaign team or in the balance multiplayer side, that are kind of coming up with new roles that they need for the game, and then it kind of comes over to either the art team that I work with or we have sound teams and all these other content teams that are basically making all the stuff that you see and hear in the game and kind of trying to flesh it out. So those are the things that I do. Although our whole team is involved with playtesting the game, giving feedback about it all along the way. We're all kind of passionate about the game and about where we're taking it, so everyone always has an opinion about new things that we're trying out.
Which content feeds which content? Is it multiplayer that feeds the single player, or is it vice versa? Because obviously you use the single player to introduce new units to, I guess, maybe players that aren't specifically as versed in how StarCraft plays, or is it a case of, this would be really good for this particular mission, so let's add it, and then we try and fit it into multiplayer?
We kind of took a new approach to this in our RTS games that for Wings of Liberty, and we're kind of carrying that into Heart of the Swarm as well. Like historically, the multiplayer units have been featured prominently in the campaign, and that's kind of where we kind of use campaign as a training ground for multiplayer. But for Wings of Liberty and for Heart of the Swarm, we've kind of given ourselves a liberty to disconnect that a little bit more, which has been kind of cool, actually. We got to add a whole bunch of crazy new fun units to the campaigns that are not in multiplayer, and just basically make things that are fun for campaign that we know would never work for multiplayer, but it lets us just have fun with them. So they're kind of two separate entities right now, and we're liking keeping it that way. It really lets us make a really fun campaign and a really tight multiplayer, and I think we'll continue doing that.
Is there any particular units that you can think of off the top of your head that are fun for single player that wouldn't work at all in multiplayer?
Oh, sure. We had all kinds of things in like Wings of Liberty's campaign. There was something called the Leviathan that was this giant Zerg tentacle monster thing that would come out and start just wreaking havoc with everything. We probably could not make that a very viable multiplayer unit, or it would be a very one-off high-end unit like a mothership. But in the campaign it had its place and we had fun with it. We also took a lot of the units that we tried for multiplayer but never found a home, and we kind of polished them and used their art and gave them new abilities and put them in the campaign for Liberty. There's something called the Cobra that was in the campaign that was kind of a Terran vehicle that had a railgun and shot in a line. That was a multiplayer unit that never worked out, that we decided we still wanted to use because we thought it was cool, but it wasn't good enough for multiplayer, so it goes to the campaign.
If there was enough outcry from fans, even multiplayer specific players that kind of liked those units in the single player, would you ever consider trying to retool them to work in multiplayer?
Yeah, some of them we actually ourselves, we're still passionate about them and we think they're cool and viable, and we still try to keep poking them and try to make them work in multiplayer. We actually have some old units in multiplayer that didn't work in our previous attempts to get them in, that the art has returned for Heart of the Swarm. Like the Oracle has been completely redone, but it is a kind of the spiritual successor of something that we had for Wings of Liberty during development that we called the Star Relic. That was just a little Protoss caster, and that guy is kind kind of back in his form, but new abilities. So there's little things that kind of we champion, things that we like that we want to make sure get a chance at some point, and we'll keep trying them, try to find a home.
Now, let's jump into the single-player campaign. I had a chance to come out to Irvine and play it at the event earlier this year, I think it was. In May. What's changed since then? Because obviously you guys read, everybody's thoughts on it. You've probably got a lot of internal feedback as well. Can you kind of run us through anything specific that you might know that's changed since then, and I guess just how far along the game is going in terms of kind of reaching the end game goal?
Sure. Yeah. We're still, our main focus is on Heart of the Swarm's campaign. That's a lot of efforts going into that. We're still hovering at around 20 missions for it. Since we showed it in May, we've continued to develop things like the Kerrigan's progression. She kind of starts off in the aftermath of Wings of Liberty. She's been kind of desertified, and she, throughout the course of Heart of the Swarm, is kind of building her powers back up and trying to kind of get to where she wants to be. So that theme is still there, but we've kind of changed some of the mechanics of how we evolve her. One of the things that we tried recently is giving her abilities that you can change on the fly in your mission. So the incarnation you saw back in May, you basically would kind of pick a focus for her when you were in story mode before a mission, pick kind of the kit you wanted, and then you jump in the mission and you use that stuff. And kind of given more flexibility in the playstyles now, where you're unlocking missions as you progress, and once you get into a map, you can on the fly say, right now, this moment, this would be cool if I could use this thing, and kind of re-kit her, and kind of gives you a lot more place options. And also, since the missions are so far along now, we're able to kind of see how all those abilities interact with our campaign structure that we have right now.
Did you guys find that doing that slowed down the progression of the game that you'd already set in place?
No, because we were kind of already experimenting with some different things, so I think they have it tuned pretty well to the way they want it right now, and you may find missions where you're limited to which things you can choose between, but it'll be a little more open than before, where you were basically kind of stuck with whatever you chose right before the mission started. So, and again, though, these are things that we're experimenting with. We may change them. It's playing really well right now and starting to feel really good, so I think we're on the right track.
Has the story remained the same in terms of missions and chapters, and I guess what happens progressively to all the characters in the game, or has the gameplay kind of reshaped that a little bit as you've progressed in development?
I mean, we make slight adjustments as we go, just because something really cool ideas come along as we go, but I think a lot of the general direction is stuff that we've been pretty solid on for a really long time, and we're trying to just reinforce all that story element with the gameplay and with the missions that you're kind of going through. So.
Now, obviously, in Wings of Liberty, you're not only playing as the Terran. There was some cool little Protoss side quests. Can you talk about any kind of differentiation in gameplay that you'll be having here?
Yeah, we don't have any specific news on it. I can say, we got our 20 or so missions. Kerrigan is definitely the focus, and she's going to be on mission almost all the time, if not all the time. We don't really have anything to say about if you're going to have your one-off Terran missions or Protoss missions or something, but that worked pretty well in Liberty. We'll have to see how where we end up.
Now, apart from the fact that it is such a big multiplayer game, the single player has this really, I guess, it's almost like a solitary component to it, where you become really attached to the main character, and it seems like this is Kerrigan's. Obviously, she's reclaiming her life and figuring out where she exists. Is there going to be redemption, or is she just going to go back to being like super evil, or will we see kind of this lust for revenge that she has driving the story in a direction that maybe nobody expects?
I mean, without ruining things that are going on, I mean, you're kind of along for the ride with Kerrigan as she is kind of coming back on, basically, as she's kind of regaining her abilities and kind of getting control of that side of herself. And so I think throughout the campaign, it won't be just kind of dropped upon you. You'll really see the progression in that and kind of understand where she's coming from. So I think you'll kind of understand it as you're playing through it there.
Okay. And now finally, I just want to end on a really good note. It seems like esports is actually taking off in a really, really big way, something you guys must be very proud of. Are you at all concerned that maybe that the multiplayer is overshadowing the stuff that you're doing in single player, and have you approached that in any specific way? And if not, if there's no concern there at all, where would you like to, what heights do you want this esports stuff to go? Because I heard someone saying just before in the press room that they feel like where esports now is in North America, it feels like it was in the early 2000s in like South Korea, and now we know how big that is there. So I mean, it seems like it's just on the up and up.
Yeah, well, from the ground up, we really built this game with esport in mind. Like that was one of those pillars that we were aiming for. We really wanted a multiplayer game that could be played at the highest levels competitively and could be spectated. And we made a lot of decisions to kind of align the game to be successful at that. Of course, once we finished it and kind of pushed it out there, it was all in the hands of the players and the pro players and the casters and the tournaments, and everyone's really embraced it and kind of made it what we hoped it could be, and so much more really at this point. And I think it's still growing, it's still building this momentum. You're having these Starcraft things happening now where people are gathering in public places and watching it and cheering, and those are all the kind of things that, you know, we would kind of dream of, but here it is happening today. And as far as like competition of single player and multiplayer, we kind of always knew we were making two kind of distinct games, and there are things that, you know, someone might like either or they might love both of them, but we're putting very specific things out there for people to enjoy, and our hope is that it's all fun and that you know, they find something for everyone in it, which, I mean, I think at this point, looking at the success that StarCraft 2's had already and it continues to have, I think people have really embraced you know, all the things we've done on the campaign side as well as the multiplayer side.
Okay, awesome. Well, we'll leave it there. Thanks once again, and congrats on the game. It's looking fantastic. I can't wait to get out there and get my hands on it. Cheers.